As president-elect, Trump's team begins to take shape, and the left's attack are well underway, as you know. Democrats and the media attempting to smear newly selected border czar Tom Homan. Watch.
The appointment of Tom Homan today as border czar, and he will be in charge of a mass deportation program. What it means is grandmothers. What it means is brothers and aunts. Yep. What it means is abuelos y abuelas.
Tom Homan has been promising mass deportations and camps to hold millions of people in this country, bragging about how he's going to be the man who will mercilessly come after immigrants.
But critics fail to realize Homan's long career in Homeland Security that spans nearly 40 years over both Republican and Democrat administrations. In 2015, he was awarded for his work under the Obama administration before serving as acting ICE director under Donald Trump. Joining us now, Fox News contributor Ben Domenech. Good morning to you, Ben.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. Have they learned nothing? I mean, it sounds like what they were saying 2 weeks ago, and America spoke. They want a safer country. What's your reaction?
No, they've absolutely learned nothing, Ainsley. And I think that one of the things that's important to know about Tom Homan, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, is that he's served under both Republican and Democrat administrations. He's been around this for a long time. And one of the things that I think is so critical that he understands is that we're not just going to revert to the approach that was used under President Trump's first term. A lot of people, point to the success of the Remain in Mexico program and things like that were put in place under that term. And of course, that for the time was something that could work. But we're beyond that point now. We've gone from AMLO, the former leader in Mexico, to his apprentice, Claudia Sheinbaum, who's now in charge. And we can no longer trust the Mexican government when it comes to any of these things. We need to have a much more aggressive approach to the border, a more aggressive approach that includes going after cartels, going after their money, and when it comes to enforcing our laws, not accepting anything that they say from Mexico on face value. We simply have learned at this point that we cannot trust them. Tom Homan knows that. It's why it's so important that we have someone who understands that in this job.
Yeah, so here he is pushing back against the media critics. Watch this.
President Trump has made it clear we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats first. If you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't feel comfortable. Absolutely not. I won't feel comfortable if I'm in the country illegally. You shouldn't be comfortable either, because when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. You are a criminal, and you're not off the table.
Yeah, so, Ben, why are they so focused on grandmothers and moms and dads? Why don't they focus on the criminals? He says, this was his quote, the worst will be first.
Yeah, I think that that's so important to understand about this. And it's the thing that I think the left has been in such denial about. It's one of the reasons that they just got hammered in this election. Mm-hmm. It's because they refuse to believe that there's a criminal element that is clearly following these migration trends that we've seen happen time and again. We've seen historic heights of sex trafficking and the like explode under the Biden-Harris administration. Tom Homan is about bringing a stop to that, and I think he's going to have the right priorities in mind when it comes to criminals and security threats to the American people.
Yeah, your wife used to be on The View. Do you really think they just refuse to believe, or do you think they just hate Donald Trump so much they're trying to just fearmonger?
Ainsley, you're touching on the PTSD that I have from that period of life.
I can only imagine.
No, I think they're in total denial. They can't accept it. And look, the simple takeaway that they have from this election is, oh, it's the voters who are wrong. They're the ones who are wrong about what's going on in our country. Well, guess what? They're right. They understand what's going on. It's you who's out of touch. It's you who can't acknowledge the fact that this is such a serious problem in communities, not just on the border, but across America, as we've seen over the past several years. The Biden-Harris administration looked away for far too long. The American people bore the brunt of the ramifications of that. And this new Trump administration, I believe, is going to have this as priority number one when they get back to the White House.
All right. So, Ben, for the people who don't know much about Tom Homan, let's just go over his resume. New York police officer. He was a Border Patrol agent. He led ICE's enforcement and removal under President Obama. Then he was the acting ICE director under Donald Trump. He worked, Ben, we can't harp on this enough. He worked for two administrations, a Republican and a Democrat. He just loves this country. It's common sense. He wants to do the right thing and make sure people are not coming across our border, especially criminals.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you see there, too, is how much the left has shifted over the years. You know, people talked about Obama, you know, in his time in office as being the deporter-in-chief, that he was someone who understood that he actually, in order to, you know, hold together his coalition, he needed to be a little tougher on the border than some of the other Democrats there. But the progressive left has taken over the coalition so much that you're not allowed to say that anymore. The Obama administration versus the Biden administration, you know, it was night and day. And I think that one of the things that we saw under Alejandro Mayorkas and the way that he approached this whole thing was he just didn't do his job. For 3.5 years, he looked the other way on purpose. He cared more about, you know, allegations of people whipping migrants and the like than he did about securing our border. That's going to change when Donald Trump gets back into the White House. And it's a big part of the reason why he's headed back there.
All right, Ben, thank you so much. Say hey to your lovely wife, Meghan McCain, for us.
I will.
Thanks for coming on.
Good to be with you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.